Welcome to another episode of the Strive for Good Life podcast. My name is Nino Pingara, and I'm here with Brandon Gano, who is the co-founder of whatif.com, which is a small business consulting firm and business accelerator, right? I want to make sure I get that correct. Welcome to the show, Brandon.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, I'm excited to talk. You guys have a lot of experience working with small businesses, which is perfect for our audience. And so I'm really excited to just jump in and talk about some important lessons we can learn. Let's start with your background, though, and kind of what got you interested in business and what eventually maybe led you into what you're doing now.
Yeah, so for me personally, it's me and my business partner. We've co-founded What If. It's actually his company from over a decade ago. We relaunched it into what it is today. So we'll obviously get there. But for me, what got me into business originally was I was one of those kids that just had to be, selling something, working with people. I was always creating businesses and, just doing like odd jobs around my community at home to make side money as a teenager. So that kind of grew and grew. I went to college for business, biggest waste of 4 years of my life. If anyone else out there is thinking about going to college for business, don't just go into business. But then I got into the small business world. I had my first job out of college was actually working with a family business. And I just fell in love with everything business. I was obsessed with it. It just always fascinated me, and tinkering with things, making things more efficient, processes, systems, all that stuff. And then about, I think it's like 6 years ago, 5-6 years ago now at this point, I started my first company independently. And that's where I saw an opportunity in the marketplace where there was a lack of customer service. And this industry, it was a service-based company. This industry as a whole just really had poor customer service, and that's what it was known for. So I was like, it's such low-hanging fruit. There is an opportunity to go and revolutionize an industry and serve the customer and make money while you're doing it. So it was really like a win-win-win. And that's what got me into business. So, in my bio, which we had discussed briefly, it says I turned frustration into a company. I also don't maybe recommend that, but I was really frustrated that there was a lack of something in the marketplace. And I said, hey, if no one else is going to go fix this, I'm going to be the one to do it. And that's really what got me at first into business for myself.
Yeah, I love that. That's a hallmark of entrepreneurs is seeing a problem and just raising their hand and saying, I'll take this on if no one else is going to. So I love that. But it's interesting that you said that you don't recommend that. So maybe we'll get back to that. But I'm curious about what you said concerning school, because you did get a degree in business, but you don't think that's necessary. That's interesting, because so many people out there, they'll say, well, I don't have the education, I don't have the qualifications, so why do you say that it's not important to have the degree? And, what have you learned outside that you didn't learn in school, if that makes sense?
Yeah, I mean, it don't take my word for it. So some of the biggest and wealthiest entrepreneurs in the world never went to college, and some didn't even go to high school. So those are the examples on the shelf that we can always point to. And if you don't disagree with me, well, just look at them. They have way more money than I do. But for me personally, I went to school I majored in business management. I minored in operations and entrepreneurship, which that's kind of an oxymoron that you go to school to be an entrepreneur, but that's besides the point. But I never learned how to start and run a business. And that's kind of what we teach at What If. The system of business that we're taught to model, these big Fortune 500 companies, and they're massive, they make billions of dollars. The fundamental system of business is broken. So when you go to school to learn this system, that only applies if you're going to specialize in one individual role within a company. Nobody teaches you how to run and operate a business, especially a small business meant to scale. So that to me is where the whole thing is broken. I learned more my first 2 years out of college, just trial and error and constantly learning from my failures, than I ever did sitting in a classroom about the theory of business, if you will.
Yeah, that's really interesting. So I kind of want to dig into the differences of, that large scale business model versus what you're talking about with smaller businesses. So, I mean, what are the differences between what you learn in school and really what it takes to start a small business?
Yeah, well, let's even back up further. And I think for us, where business really broke was at the beginning. So if you think about it, pre-industrial revolution, you had tradesmen, you had tradespeople. So if you sold or you raised sheep and I grew grain, what we would do to exchange value is I would give you bags of grain, you would give me sheep in return, right? The exchange of value is commerce. That is business at its core. All we've done since then is we've put money to it. So we said, okay, instead of trading sheep and goats and grain, we trade currency. So you move to the Industrial Revolution and you start to get these businesses that scale. Well, pre-Industrial Revolution, you had just you, if you needed help, you'd hire your cousin or your brother or a family member or someone you knew from town. Your best friend's son is looking for a job and, you can teach him, he could be your apprentice, right? So that was our model of business. When we bring that into a centralized business model, that is the model we have today, we had to go further out. We had to start hiring people that we didn't know and put them in specialized roles. And then we had to go up a level and hire managers to oversee those people. Well, we start building these silos and these just isolated portions of business. And the bigger it gets, the more managers and the more workers we have. So you're at the top as the CEO, and all of a sudden, 12 levels beneath you, you have somebody who's now off over there murdering people in another village, and you don't know, you have no idea what's going on because your business is so disassociated from level to level, right? So that was, I know this is 100 years ago. We're trying to cram 100 years of history into 2 minutes of a podcast episode. But that is the model that has been in existence since the Industrial Revolution. If you think about the biggest companies, Ford, who introduced the assembly line, that's what it was. When you started getting employees from outside of your community, outside of your immediate circle, and indoctrinating them into your company culture, that is what happens. Now you have different departments, different silos, nothing talks to each other, and it's just a broken mess. But the issue is when they teach that model in school, they just show you the positives of it. So they show you how to be a marketing manager or a CMO. They show you how to be an HR director and how to hire people effectively to plug into this system. What they don't tell you is that these Fortune 500 companies have billions upon billions of dollars to throw people and money at problems. When you translate that to small business and Main Street, you do not have billions of dollars or even millions in most cases, and you don't have endless people coming to work for you. So you look at these big companies like, I don't understand how they do it. They have an HR department, they have a marketing department, they have a sales department. And you try to model that as a small business, and we can't figure out why it works for them and doesn't work for us. So the whole theory of teaching business and modeling the big companies is lacking the foundation of what really a good, efficient business is. So again, I'm trying to cram a lot of history into a short time frame here, but ultimately at its core is that the model of business that we have as our guiding star example is not truly efficient for all stages of business.
Yeah, that's so fascinating to me because you're right. And I've seen that college just is meant to give you a job essentially. And it is ironic that they teach entrepreneurship classes and then don't teach you. I'm sure there are exceptions out there, and I'm not knocking college for anyone that's out there listening that feels like they need to go that route. Absolutely do it if you find the right program. But yeah, it is interesting how much more you learn just by doing as opposed to sitting in a classroom. So let's go back to your first venture a few years ago that you started. I'm a little bit more interested in that. Tell me what that was and how you talked about how there was a lack of customer service in that industry. And so, maybe get into how you went about solving that.
Yeah. So it was a screen printing embroidery business. So custom merch. And it was a local business. So I classify that as, even though we were selling a physical product, you're really selling the service of customized apparel. So what I also lump into that is other local trades. So construction, plumbing, electricians, that's kind of the same area of the market that we were in. And all of them traditionally lack customer service. What was the last time you had a pleasurable experience calling a plumber, right? Like, first of all, if you're calling a plumber, depending on the time of day, you probably don't want to be making that call. And it's very similar. Like, when you call these people, they know that you have to be calling them. They are the answer to your problem, and they take for granted the whole aspect of customer service. Now, of course, this is not universal, but at least in my market and the prevailing attitude in the industry was, we are artists and we are too good for the common people to understand what we do. And when you come to us, we're going to preach at you and lecture about how we're the greatest, and you're going to get what we give you. So I said, this is so backwards. Like when I basically just took the Amazon model. Like when a customer comes to you and they want something, you have to serve and meet their expectations. I don't know how that ever got backwards. Like how, as a company, are the customers privileged to work with us? I think, some people can get away with that, but most small businesses cannot. So I said, all right, let's attack this head on. What is the one thing that's lacking in this environment? And that was, it was actually two things. It was customer service, which I have gone a step further and classified as customer experience. And then also speed, which that was, again, just specific to that industry. It's very hard to get custom apparel inside of 2 weeks, 3 weeks at sometimes. So I said, all right, let's focus on those two things and see where it gets us. So immediately when we started that company, it blew up. The first year was pretty good. The next 3 years, we doubled our revenue consistently, and we did no marketing. So it was just focusing on those two things, on the lack that was in the marketplace, and we were able to grow. Now, there's so much more that goes into business that obviously I learned over the last 5 years, but just prioritizing those two things and really understanding what was our value chain and what was the promise that we delivered to the clients, everything else starts to fall in place, because that's when, in the harmonious architecture that we teach now at What If, the 10 disciplines of business that have to be linked in order to have a thriving, successful company. What I didn't have words for at the time was, well, my mission was to deliver an exceptional customer experience to the customer. Now, how does that trickle down to production and fulfillment? Well, when my production team had any questions as far as a quality issue, a speed issue, or anything, they looked up there, and our North Star as a company was deliver an exceptional customer experience. So a lot of our questions were answered just by having a well-defined mission. It doesn't solve all your problems, but we had that to look to in every single area. If we had to give a refund to somebody, is this going to provide an exceptional customer experience? If yes, do it. If no, then we can ask further questions. But that was really what got us, I would say 80 to 90% of the way there, was just focusing on those two things that happened to be the giant need in the marketplace that people were screaming for.
Yeah, it's surprising how many people lack a clear mission statement. Like you said, a North Star that kind of helps them make all the decisions in their business. You mentioned that there were 10 things, really. Maybe let's just get into those individually and talk about them.
Yeah, absolutely. So as I mentioned, we have named the architecture Harmonious. It's an acronym. It's 10 letters. I can barely spell it, but that's okay. So
it is a lot. Yeah,
it is a lot. But so what basically we identified was, there's these 10 disciplines, which essentially have always been the silos that I talked about in business. So all we did was identify what they are, the 10 things businesses can't operate without and actually must master in order to grow, scale, and thrive. And we renamed them. We boiled them down to the essence of what they are, and we've given them names to fit inside the harmonious architecture, with the theory that if you're going to run a business that is harmonious, things are working together nicely and it sounds good, right? So some of them, we can go through them, but basically the way we took it was traditionally strategic planning doesn't really work for small businesses, because a lot of small businesses are like, oh, my strategic plan is for 2024, I'm going to double my revenue. Okay, how? It doesn't matter. I'm going to double my revenue. It's great. That's my strategic plan. Like there's a lot more levels to that. So we've renamed it Navigate. So instead of strategic planning, it's Navigate, because that's the navigation of your business. I kind of hinted at this before with the mission. It's mission, vision, core values, and also the plan of how you're going to achieve your growth goals. So from there, you can go to, I'm looking at my screen here to read them. The acronym in order is not the order we tackle them, but the actual order would be navigation, operation, serenity, order, analysis, modify, home, inspire, ubiquity, rad. Now we can unpack those, and depending on how much time we have here, we can go in as much detail as you want. But basically, those are the funny names that all have been renamed to the traditional business model so that we can, again, boil them down to the essence. What is it? And then we can build from there and link them to the other portions of the model so that you can leverage that to grow your business.
Yeah, okay, absolutely. We do have decent amount of time, so I am curious about, what each of those mean, because for me, just outsider looking in, I have no idea, right? So
Right.
let's break down where you would start. You said which one was it that you
Yeah, so navigation is actually where we start.
navigation? That's right.
Yeah. So yeah, we'll go through it. So navigation is the direction of your business. So we start with your core values, and that's super important because, you look at big companies who have broken their core values to the marketplace, and that's similar to the value chain that I was describing in the other example. Let's take the most obvious, and we're not going to take sides of this. We're just going to explain how this happens and shows up in real life. Most recently, Bud Light. They have broken their brand promise to the consumer. And it doesn't matter, again, not taking sides. It's just they were one thing. Their company was this one thing, and they broke that promise. They did something totally off the wall, out of character, and they've offended their core customer base. If you're not clear on your core values and how you show up to your customers in the marketplace, and you break that just to follow a trend or, use clever marketing, you're breaking the value chain. And that's what they did. So we start there because, as you can already see, we're tying in core values to marketing. I made that quick little link. Super important to always be aware of that. Now, the other two parts that are important are the mission and the vision. So your mission is, what is it you stand for in the world? What is the injustice you solve in the world? I told you mine from the previous company. That was our mission. It was the guiding statement. And it's a really good filter to say, is this adding to or detracting from our mission? And it's that quick little filter that all of your employees, no matter the scale of the company, can ask themselves that, and they don't have to escalate their problems to whatever the next level of management is. That saves so much time in and of itself, just to have that baked into your culture so that people can answer questions for themselves. It's very powerful, and it honestly doesn't exist, especially in a lot of the Fortune 500 companies. From there, you have mission. I'm still in navigation, but vision. So vision is, where are you going in 5 years? Now, that's important because instead of just saying, we're going to double revenue every year, that's not a realistic strategic plan, right? So what we do is we take the vision and we break that down multiple times. So we break it down into your 1-year vision, into your quarterly visions, and what are the actual action steps that you need to take on a daily basis. And we break those down by department and by role. So again, depending on the scale of the company, if your 5-year vision is to grow by, let's just say, $100 million, we're going to break that down so that your every single role in your company has a daily leading indicator that they must meet. That is so much more granular than most people get to. But if you don't know what you're chasing and what you need to do to get there, how are you supposed to get there? It's like having a map from New Jersey to California and saying, all right, just figure it out, but there's no roads on the map. Like, you could just go left, but are you going to get there efficiently the right way? So that's really where we go. So from navigation to operate, that's the link there, is we're breaking down the vision. We're getting detailed and super granular about what every single person needs to do in your company so that your vision becomes inevitable, not just a dream. From there, we're going to go to serenity.
Yeah. Can I jump in real quick? So, going back to navigation, the reason that is so important is, having clearly defined values and a mission. I just want to touch on this quickly for our audience members out there, is because at the end of the day, business is person to person, and people buy you. They buy your brand because of what you represent for them, right? So they have to connect on the value level. And I love that you use the example of Bud Light, because they absolutely misunderstood who their audience was. And when you do that, it hurts. I've previously worked with businesses that have an issue there and struggle to connect with their audience because they're kind of just, they don't have it clearly defined. And so in their minds, they're for everyone. And when you're for everyone, you're for no one. right? There's nothing to really relate to. There's nothing that makes you stand out in the marketplace. And so that piece is really crucial to start off with. And so I just wanted to say that for those listening, and I really appreciate that you got into that. So thank you. Go ahead and keep going. I just
I appreciate you saying that. We'll dive into Serenity in a second, but it's so important to understand because we put these fancy labels like B2B and B2C. It's H to H. It's human to human. Every interaction is human to human, regardless of if it's the Fortune 500 or it's small business on Main Street. And I think, like you said, that's the thing that gets thrown aside because even at the Fortune 500 level, it is not Dell buying or Microsoft buying from Dell, right? It is one person in each company or a team of people, and you have to form the relationships. If you don't think those people can get the job done and align on the core value level, it's never going to go smooth. So yeah, I think we look at too often, opportunity, but we don't have the filter of saying, does this align with our core values? Is this company and these people aligned with our core values and our mission? Or is this maybe not a good fit? It is so hard to say no sometimes to really big opportunities, but when you have these filters in place, it gets a lot easier. And I know us personally, both myself and Sean, my business partner at What If, and then Sean in his other company that he's starting right now, which is, we're talking billions of dollars at a time. The ease with which we can say no to 7, 8, 9-figure opportunities actually blows my mind consistently. 3 years ago, I don't know if I would have had that, but using the architecture and just the filter, like I said, of the core values, the mission, and understanding who we are and what we deliver to the marketplace, it sucks to say no to 9 figures, let me tell you. But the power to do it is actually better on the back side of it. So yeah, you hit the nail on the head with that. But if we keep diving in here, so I'm trying to go over these super quick. Let me also pause and say, we do have an assessment. It's a free assessment. If you go to whatif.com, you can throw that in the show notes. It'll give you a score of where your business is in all 10 of these areas. It takes 8 minutes. And for your audience, we'll go and actually dive through that. We'll do a one-on-one call to show you where your business is in all these 10 areas. So I'm breezing through this super quick so you get the idea of the structure, but don't worry, we have a solution for you. So Serenity basically is renamed from time management. I mean, I don't know how you feel about that phrase, but can you manage time? I don't think that's not possible. Managing time is basically like putting a group of people in a canoe in a river and saying, go manage the river, right? It's there. It's how you direct your energy and focus to the time. So serenity is the goal. That's the essence of time management. We want to get to serenity in our lives, whether you're the CEO or you're just an employee at the company. You want to be doing meaningful work, definitely, but on your terms, and so it doesn't eat your whole life. So serenity is how, okay, so we've boiled down your vision into your action steps. Let's put them on the calendar and make sure your calendar reflects the control of your life that you want to have. So we can plan out your day, your week, your month in advance to know that, all right, this is set in stone. We'll leave some white space, of course, for opportunities and other things that come up. But ultimately, what we want to do is say, no, this is what's going to get me to the outcome I want. So it's scheduled, and then everything else can fill in the gaps. But I also have to understand, we call it the 4 Ds: do, delete, delegate, and delay. So you have to, that's the filter of saying when opportunity comes in, first thing you're going to do is say, can I delete it? If you're the CEO and you're the business owner, you have to have very high standards of what gets to you and what you can only uniquely do yourself. So the first thing you're going to do when you meet opportunity is delete. Is this important? Is it going to get me to my vision? And is it actually adding to my mission? If yes, okay. Do I need to do it now? So you could say, all right, it's important, but I can wait a month or so. So we can put it on the calendar for a month, a few weeks out, if it's still you. If it's not, okay, can I delegate it? Can I give it to somebody else on my team? Can I outsource it? Can I hire a VA? I understand this is important, but I need to get this off my plate, and there's a ton of other talented people who can do it. If you get through those 3 filters, and it's no to all of them, and you must do it as the owner, the CEO, the leader, that's what we call the golden line. And this is really the key to understanding serenity. If you filter through those 3 steps and you say, finally, yes, it's me, I have to do with my unique talents and abilities, and I only can deliver this, those are the tasks that are above the golden line that will achieve the vision, don't compromise the mission, they're in line with your core values, and they don't compromise your calendar. So right there, you can see there's so much that goes into time management that doesn't really have to do with time, but it's ultimately to accomplish serenity. And I think a lot of leaders and entrepreneurs are just like, they're part of hustle culture, right? They're like, no, do more, just work harder. And that you're throwing away your serenity. So if there's one thing I want you to take from this podcast, it's the 4 Ds. If you could just understand that and start implementing that in your business, that's a game changer for everybody.
Yeah, I absolutely love that because, like you said, so many entrepreneurs are stuck in that whole hustle culture. They just think that they got to keep working harder. And really, like you said, the end goal shouldn't be to be more busy. It should be to have greater freedom in your life, right? Isn't that why people start businesses, for the freedom that it's supposed to create? So, that's easy to get backwards. Yeah. And I love that you have a framework for just making the decisions on what you have to do. And I think it's ironic that so many people are worried about handing off pieces of it to other people because they're concerned about maybe the quality control. They want it done a certain way, when in reality, it'll just accelerate your business and likely get done even at a higher standard because, the person you'll give it to likely is an expert in that particular thing, whatever it is. So, because as entrepreneurs, you can't be an expert at everything. I know we like to think that we are, but that's not reality. And so you might as well give it off to someone that's going to do a better job than you. And that does take a little bit more work to set up and find the right people, of course. But once you do, it's absolutely a game changer. So I love that. Let's keep going. What else is on the list after that?
Yeah, so let's go through the next one, and then if you want to go through this for yourself, please download that or take the assessment, download the report, and we'll go through it with you. But so we have navigate, operate, serenity. The next one is order. So I actually want to go through order and analysis. Order is basically, what's the process it's traditionally change management. So what's the process that we implement change? I think that is, it's an important part of big business, of Fortune 500. To change anything in a company of tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of employees, takes a lot. So they have that structure in place. Small businesses and entrepreneurs, we're just like, oh, cool, butterfly. Let's sell butterfly cages today. Like, you're a mechanic shop. Why are you selling butterfly cages? We change for the sake of change sometimes. And it takes away from the mission and the vision, and it's a distraction to everybody on our team. So having a structure for change management, but really where this plays in this sequence that we're going over, let's hit analysis first and then come right back to change management. Analysis is basically your metrics. So where this comes into play, I'll give you a real life example that literally just happened yesterday on our mastermind call. We're going through this with our clients, and we're breaking down the vision into the daily action steps. So one of our clients was talking about, he wants 500 paying members in the elite level of his mastermind. So we said, okay, that's in 5 years. So what does this look like for Q1 of next year? And we said, all right, you just need to get 4. So already you can see how this becomes a 5-year vision, becomes very manageable. So he needs to get 4 by the end of the year. So we said, okay, what are the 3 critical drivers to get those 4 people? What have you done to get your first couple? What can we repeat to get the next one and the next one and the next one for just the first quarter? We're thinking really small. So he said, okay, I can make 4 phone calls a day to the people who I've identified are interested or be good fits. And that one's good. And then he said 2 that were not good. It was host 2 events a month and get on 2 stages a month. And we said, those are not critical drivers. Those are big items. So now we're back to analysis. We are analyzing the 3 critical drivers using our metrics. So we said, all right, let's break those down further. What does it take for you to put on 2 events a month. What are the action steps that your team needs to accomplish so that these events take place and you have the right avatars in the room? Because just hosting 2 events a month, if 5 people are in the room for each one, is that going to get you to your goal? So there needs to be some filters in place to say, okay, these are actually critical drivers. These are truly action steps that we can accomplish on and fill on, so we get the right people in the room. And then with the speaking event, he could speak at an event with 10,000 ideal avatars, or actually, better example, 10,000 homeless people, or he can speak at an event with 100 people ready to invest in real estate. For him, that's his whole thing, is investing in real estate. I would rather see him in 2 rooms of 100 than 2 rooms of 10,000 who have no means to connect with your service and no interest in connecting with your service at all. So that's where this kind of stuff plays in. And then change management on the back end of that is to say, all right, this is what we're doing for the first time we're doing this. We have not put this in place in your business. Let's identify these critical drivers, the KPIs, the leading indicators, whatever you want to call them. We will do them for 1 quarter. We'll run them for the 12, 13 weeks, and then we will analyze them and change them. Most people change to change. Like I said, if you don't change because of certain metrics or because you missed an outcome because of something else, you're just changing for no reason. So that's where these first 5 that we've gone through, 5 out of the 10, are really, really heavily linked. And this is where a lot of entrepreneurs fall short of their goals, because they do something for 3 weeks, it doesn't work, they change. They do that for 3 weeks, it doesn't work, they change. And it's constantly this cycle of change, and we're spinning our wheels, and we're like, why am I working so hard and not seeing results? Because, dummy, you didn't do anything for a long enough period of time to get data on it. Like, let's be smart about this. Let's break the whole thing down. And I see you're laughing, which I love. Most people do laugh at that, but then we start to think, when was the last time I did this? Oh, it was like this morning, where I just did something differently for the sake of doing it. And we do it all the time in our businesses. So it's just the discipline to say, no, I'm changing this because of this number, because that didn't result in the outcome that I wanted. And these are the reasons why we're changing it and what we're changing it to. Just to have a process to say, explain why. That's the biggest thing that pisses off employees and team members, is when they see a leader just changing to change. And you will lose team members faster doing that than anything else.
Yeah, that's super important, that point of disenfranchising your employees. That's something a lot of people don't consider, but absolutely spot on in terms of the amount of data you need to be able to make good decisions, right? And that's how I look at everything, is that every experiment, I mean, it's just another data point, right? But you need a lot of them to really know what the results are going to be. I mean, to understand where those actions are leading you. And like you said, I don't know if it's that shiny object syndrome that entrepreneurs have, right? We just see something else that we think will work and we want to jump to that. But that mentality of kind of always looking to the next thing, as if, the grass is greener over there, right? It doesn't work. You gotta water your own lawn and nurture that before you can get anything else out of it. So I love that point. Let's keep going if we can. I really want to try and get through all of these 10 for our audience, because I think these are incredibly valuable, and I know that it's a lot of information. So I know I'm going to have to go back and rewatch this, but let's keep going if we can.
Yeah, absolutely. So we hit order, we hit modify a little bit. A big one, and the next one we would address is, we call it home, which is traditionally HR. That is such a boring name, and it's actually an offensive name if you think about it. Human resources. Humans are not resources. They're an asset to your company, and they're humans. This is part of our team. We're building a culture here. We're not developing resources in our company. So we call it HOME, which is another acronym for Humans Optimized in a Meaningful Environment. This is the one sticking point that we always have when consulting with companies. And my partner, Sean, like I said, he has consulted with more of the Fortune 50 than I could probably count at this point. So he has seen the biggest of the big. He's seen this model in a truly broken sense. And the one thing that he always saw was, he built a beautiful system that worked. I mean, one example is over the course of 18 months, he was able to save Nike $30 million. The minute he left, they called him back within a couple of months because the people were the same. They were not optimized. So what we had to figure out a way to do was, all right, if we're going to build the whole structure and not change the people, it's a ticking time bomb. It's a matter of weeks, months, hopefully years. But that's how consultants typically stay in business, because they can count on the fact that they will be called back to fix the same exact problem over and over and over, and they will be regarded as a god every single time they do it. And we said, you know what? We'd rather do less work, but have a holistic system that works than just come back and do the same thing over and over and over. So the home piece was difficult for us. Now, let me also say, in all of these 10 disciplines, we are not the experts. We only have like 3 or 4 of them where we say, this is our jam. The rest of them, we have what's called luminaries in our community, which are actually experts in these areas. So our specific luminary in the home category is, his name is Wei, and he has a company out in Silicon Valley that does just that. They optimize humans. So they use a quantum physics assessment, which is way smarter than I know anything about, but they use quantum physics to identify what people need to show up as their best version of themselves, both in the workplace and at home. So they truly optimize the employee and the human being holistically, both at work and at home, like I said. So you have humans showing up prepared and ready to do the work and do what they're meant to do and not feel burnt out and hate the culture. So they optimize the human, they optimize the culture. And when you have that, the system that we optimize now plugs right in. So we only have to go into companies once instead of once a month. That's huge. So the quick disruptor there is basically just to say, if we're not focused on our employees as human beings, and if we as leaders are not building them up and making them better, then it's HR. They're human resources and they're disposable resources, and they will leave. It's just a matter of time. What your focus should be as a leader is accepting, first of all, people will leave. Nobody in your life is going to be with you for your whole life. Employees, personal relationships, whatever. It's impossible. So you need to understand that and say, I am still going to give this person the best experience at this company. I will optimize them. I will make their life better, their career better, and the culture better, so that the company can run more efficiently and be more effective at what we do. If you have that mindset, you will nail the home category 100% of the time. But what most people say is, I know they're going to leave. I'm just going to train them to do the bare minimum. If they follow my processes, at least I know nothing will break. Yeah, but you broke a human being in the process. Why would you sacrifice that for one more widget to be made an hour? Right? That doesn't make sense to me.
Yeah, this piece is really interesting because I've seen that a lot where, employees are looked at, like you said, as a resource, as just something they think they can plug into their business, and they just expect that person to do their job, and that's it, right? But you said something about the business owners needing to be leaders, and I think that's the piece that a lot of entrepreneurs get wrong, is they don't understand that they have to lead their team, and that means empowering them. That means making sure their employees are happy, because a happy employee is going to be way more productive than an unhappy one. And so and employees, no matter how good they are, they need opportunities to grow, and you as a business owner, you want to hand more off to other people anyway. So if you just keep them kind of at the level they're at, and they don't ever progress and get better at their job, it's not going to take more off your plate. Like, you're always going to have to keep doing what you're doing. And whereas the goal should be, like you said, greater serenity, or less on your plate, greater freedom in your life, right? And that the only way to do that is to really empower your employees and make sure that they're growing and happy with their positions. So I love that you guys focus on that.
And here's how we know the model works. Nino, I love you. We have not met about this. You identified the next discipline, and that is inspire, or leadership, traditionally separate from home, But yes, you hit the nail on the head. The only thing I'll add to what you said is, and the reason we call it inspire, you hinted at this, is because the job of a leader is to inspire your team and your company to chase the mission. So back to navigate, this is again, linking those three pieces together. That is your role. It's not to do more. It's not to have more output or more meetings. It is to inspire the team to accomplish the mission through chasing the vision. So again, back to the beginning of this statement, the reason we know this model works is because you identified it before we said it. You are already picking up on the pieces and how they interact with each other. And that's what happens as you go through this. You start to see, you get the aha moments like, oh, I was kind of doing this, but I wasn't focused on it. I wasn't focused on the leverage. So these things are already happening. It's just to what degree are we leveraging them for success? Everybody knows a leader's job is to lead. Nobody does it. Nobody's leading. They're just doing. And we think sometimes leadership is, doing more or mopping the floors or cleaning the toilets to show I'm a leader. You can do those things, but are you inspiring? It's the difference between being a coworker and a leader that inspires. And I think you summed it up perfectly. So I don't need to add anything else to what you said.
Yeah, I'm curious of what you would say to people because, on some level, the ability to lead, that's an interpersonal skill, right? That's something that a lot of people don't necessarily, they're not born with that. Especially those that are more introverted and I don't know, for whatever reason, just never did well socially. I don't know. So what would you, because there are so many entrepreneurs that are really good at, building a business or product or whatever it is, but then completely lack that leadership piece. What do you say to those people? I mean, are there workshops that you would recommend, or is it just forcing yourself to kind of work through a framework, or what do you say to those people that lack that skill?
Yeah, unfortunately, I see you're right. And I didn't want to believe this for a long time. So basically, from working with our partner Way on this, in order to optimize a human, you can't detract from their natural characteristics. If you have someone who's just not a leader, they don't have in his world, they call it's a regal spoke. Regal, you think king, leadership, that kind of stuff. If you have a high regal spoke, you are just naturally a leader. That's how you show up in the world. You can enhance and detract from that, but you don't want to do it too much and manipulate who you are authentically as a human being, because in the long term, that actually it undoes any optimization you've performed on yourself. So it's not to say that, you can't lead if you're not naturally a leader. The flip side of that too is an unoptimized human maybe doesn't even know that they are a leader or they have this in them. And I'll give you an example from myself. So when I met Way, it was 2 years ago at this point, and I was just fascinated by what he did. I was like, this is really cool. I'd love to learn more about it. He was like, cool, take this assessment. We'll go over it. We'll show you the report. And at this time, I was leading my company. I was the quote unquote leader, right? But I was doing a terrible job of leading. So he went through the report and he's like, tell me how you show up as a leader. And I was like, well, I mean, I kind of feel imposter syndrome was basically the moral of what I shared with him. And I was like, I mean, I'm the boss. I started the company, but I don't know how to lead people. I don't know if I'm qualified to lead people. And he showed me this regal spoke. He's like, I know that because I can tell you're suppressing this. You are naturally born to be a leader and inspire people, but you are suppressing it because you're not in an environment where you're meant to thrive. You're not maximizing the traits of your personality that need to show up. So in doing that, you're actually taking away from the leadership spoke and you're becoming a smaller version of yourself. And honestly, that it totally blew my mind. So, some people think they can't lead. Maybe they were meant to. Others think they can lead and maybe weren't meant to. But basically in working with him, what we're able to do is go into a company, have the leadership team take the assessment, or depending on the size of the team, the whole company could take it. And we could identify who belongs in what seat. So sometimes you'll have the CEO of the company who's the founder, and they're not really a good leader. So they have a great idea, they have a great product, they've built a company, but they're not the person that's really meant to lead it at this size. When it's you and one employee in a garage, like you can be the leader because you're the founder. When it's 500 people and you have multiple layers of management, you may not be cut out for that, but you have a role in the company. You can lead a department. You can be a manager of something, or you can be a sales rep even. That's what a lot of people end up doing when they scale their companies, just focusing on a smaller part. You still have ownership of the company, but get out of the way. Let somebody else who's meant to lead actually lead and inspire. It's a tough answer, and it's a tough thing to tell people too, is like, this is your baby. You started it, you built it, and you're not the one capable of leading it. That's not really what we're saying, but that's what people tend to hear. And it's tough to digest. So, long story short, tough answer, but sometimes people just aren't meant to lead at a particular scale.
Yeah. Yeah. And the scale piece really is crucial, because it doesn't mean that, you can't do really well as the leader of your business up until a certain point. But then absolutely, yeah. If it were me, if I had a big business and if I was the bottleneck, and I wanted what was best for my business, clearly I would have to remove myself as that bottleneck. And that's what a lot of people really struggle with. So that is a tough conversation for people. I just realized, the time. So I don't know if we're going to have an opportunity to get to everything else that's on the list, but I want to kind of refocus on your story a little bit, because we've talked about a lot of good things for people to digest so far. But I want to go back to, your journey and that business, because you said, that the screen printing was taking off. You were doing, double your revenue every year. So what happened there, and why did you end up transitioning to what you're doing now?
Yeah, so I went in that business with the plan that I wanted to franchise it. I had been part of a franchise before. I've seen franchises. I'm like, this is cool. You get to build a community who's all moving in the same direction, and everybody empowers each other. I don't love the idea that we're in competition with each other as business owners, and in the field of business in general. Why compete? There's enough business to go around. So I was like, all right, if we could bring everybody together and chase the same mission, that would be a little bit better. So I did it. I actually went through the process. I franchised the business, and long story short, I got in bed with the wrong company. So it was a company that develops franchises. We had a ton of meetings with potential franchisees. They loved the model. I built it to be scalable, tapping into my operations background. So I did all the right things leading up to it. When I saw how they were selling franchises to people, core value alignment wasn't there. That's really what it boils down to. And again, back to the architecture, that's why it's so important. I had my core values in place. I knew them and I lived by them. So when I saw that these people were promising, millions of dollars after a year in business, and it's a business you could just pay to have somebody run, you build it, walk away, it'll run itself, and you'll be a millionaire in a year. I'm like, I don't know any business where that's the reality. Like, if that was the case, everybody would buy a franchise. Would you not? Like, okay, if you're going to tell me all I have to do is spend $40,000 to get $1 million in 12 months, everybody would find a way to get $40,000. It's not that simple. So I said, all right, I'm locked in a contract. I have two options here. I walk away from this. I call it quits. I lose all my money. It is what it is. Or I stick it out. I offend my core values and I make it work. And I hope I don't hurt too many people on the back end. And it was easy. I walked away. So I voided the contract with that company. I lost all the money that I had invested at that point, which was basically everything I made for the last 3 years in business, and tapped into my savings. And I said, I'm so, disheartened by this whole industry. I had such a bad taste in my mouth. I'm done. I sold my business as of actually 3 months ago exactly 3 months ago at the time of this recording. So I just basically wiped my hands clean. I said, that's an L, not a loss. It's a learn. But yeah, for me, it was more of that bad taste in my mouth. It was still a good business. We still made money the past 2 years, and we would continue to grow. But for me, it was more, the reason I got into business was to create a community of business owners who wanted to grow and actually be business owners and not job owners. And I said, this isn't the vehicle, but I know I will find the vehicle. And as that process was basically falling apart with the franchise, that's when I met Sean. And I told him my story. I told him what I wanted to build next. I was like, I want to build a company where, I've learned so much over these past 5 years. I want to build a company where small business owners and entrepreneurs can come and they can have access to like a fractional C-suite even. I mean, look at my language, right? Where they can tap into the resources available of people who have been there, done that, and actually grow and scale their company, but not fall for the BS and the lies that are out there too. I won't name them, but let's just say the people who promise you can 10x your company. I think we all know who I'm talking about there. It's just they feed you the wrong information, and it's the hustle culture and all that, but people fall for it. So I told him that. I gave him the picture of what I wanted to build, and he was like, let's have a conversation. I think I have something that we could partner on and really, really help a lot of people. So here we are. We're a couple months into the official relaunch of What If. We have a program we have a mastermind that's our core product, where people can come, they can learn this architecture, apply it to their business. We can coach them. And our highest level is we have a fractional C-suite. I told you, we have luminaries who we've partnered with. We have access to the CMOs, the CFOs, the legal experts, everything, marketing experts. We've built the company that I always dreamed of having as a resource when I needed it. So if we go all the way back to the beginning of this episode, I had a frustration, I solved it, and here we are. I did it again. I had another frustration, and we solved it through the creation of What If. And honestly, we're both so proud of it because we're already helping small business owners get over the hump and get to the next level in their business that to them was seemingly impossible. And we're just so proud that we're able to help people achieve their dreams.
I love that. I love that. It's perfectly in line with what the mission of this podcast is, to help small business owners, entrepreneurs, avoid the same pitfalls that everyone else gets trapped in. So I really appreciate that there are people like you out there making a difference to that group of people. And yeah, I see the value of what you're doing, and I'm inspired by your ability to take the L. And I love that you framed it as not a loss, but a learning. That's so powerful, and to just be able to keep moving forward and now turn that into success for others. That's great. Where can people go to connect with you and work with you?
Yeah, well, I mentioned it a couple of times. I want you to go take that assessment. If you even have a little bit of a question in your mind, like, could this architecture apply to me? Go take that assessment. I'll show you where you show up in all the 10 disciplines. And that would be the first and best step to getting towards your dreams of business ownership. If you want to follow me on social media, that'd be awesome. I always put out little tidbits and things to help, but definitely go take that assessment. Whatif.com, WHADIF.com.
Perfect. We'll have the links to everything in the show notes. So if you're listening out there, go there to check those out and connect with Brandon. Please make sure you're subscribed on whatever platform you're listening to this on, and share this, of course, with anyone you know that could benefit from this. Thank you so much for being on the show, Brandon. This has been amazing. And to everyone out there, keep striving, and I'll see you guys in the next one.